Hello, welcome to the Quantum Healer. We have a panel here to talk about yoga and the healing benefits of yoga. So the last sheath or part of the human is called the bliss or Anandamaya-Kosha, and I feel like I have witnessed so much of that over the years with my students, and it has been such a gift to see people really, I mean, we've talked about all the ways that people transform through this practice, and there are these, subtler and subtler ways, and sometimes people don't even see it in themselves, that there's this component of their life. All the little pieces start to change, but then in the macrocosm, you see it as this, now the person has come to a place of contentment where there's a sweetness of life, and all the little, let's be real, there's always irritations. There's always parts of life that are difficult and ugly or not fun, but what yoga gives us is this ability to shift through that very quickly and to come to this place of appreciation and gratitude for our life, where we realize that life, it's just this nectar, this sweetness, and that all that other stuff is passing, it's temporary, but that life is such a gift. And so it's not, you can't teach somebody, come to my class for bliss. That's why I always told people over the years, it's such an experiential practice. Just give me a session or two. Buy a 6-class pass, get on your mat, and just feel what happens. And over the course of maybe even just one class, and you get them into final relaxation or the culmination of this 60 or 75 minute practice, whatever you get them in, they do experience bliss somewhere in a moment. It might be a moment, it may not stay very long, but they experience that bliss in a moment, and then you can say, there we go. Now imagine if you could be there all the time. Right? Imagine if, like we teach to suspend the breath, that we can suspend that space of bliss and peace and happiness and sweetness all the time, or at least so much more, so that when we get to those difficult times, we now have another resource. Roll out that mat, do what you have to do, and now get back to, I really truly feel any suffering that we go through is entirely optional. This practice allows us really to move through that with grace, or maybe a lot of crying and hysteria, but however we get through it, and the next thing you know, we're closer, right? We're peeling back the layers of all the karmic stuff, the trauma, whatever, all those layers, and we peel it back a little bit at a time, and we release it a little bit at a time with every breath or with every practice, and the next thing you know, there is this inner core that's revealed, that's this light body, right? And it's like, oh, now I see who I truly am, without all those false identities and all the stuff that we clinged to or thought we were. And we really see this true self within. And it's, to me, witnessing that in so many people over the years has been such a precious gift, to see so many people get to that place. So the gift keeps on giving in yoga, right? Anybody think of something?
I do, I can. I remember I was preparing for a class, and I kind of went into this class. I opened the studio door before anyone was there, and I kind of knew where I was going to go with this class. And I was excited. It was a vinyasa flow, and at the time I was all about that. 8 years ago, I'm not really there anymore. But it was also the day of a pretty difficult election, and that class came in, And there was such, I don't want to say a heavy energy, but there was so much energy. And I actually got very nervous because I thought, can I hold this space? We talk about holding space a lot. That's a big phrase. And reflecting, I don't really remember how that class went, but I know that it went nothing like I had planned. But it somehow came through me in that intuitive moment. And that was a pretty powerful moment for me. It made me realize that yes, I'm an instructor and a teacher, but I am also a vessel. And these beautiful people are informing what they need from the vessel.
Yeah. I think you can relate to that. In training, you have to learn how to sequence things and how to come up with, and I taught you guys how to come up with themes and stuff like that. But what happens in reality when the people walk in the door or when you get on your mat, whatever that reality is, you have to adjust.
Yeah.
I've been there many times. Many times. It's funny you mentioned the election. There was a difficult election, and I remember myself going through a little something right before I had to teach, and that night I came in and I just I put on the mantra Radhe Govinda, and I just let it play over and over, and I told everybody, I'm not instructing you, I want you to just practice, just get on your mat and feel. And P.S. nobody is paying for tonight. No one's card's getting charged. I just be here with each other. Just get into a loving space for yourself and all humanity, our country, and let's just be here. And some people cried and some people smiled, and it just was it was probably one of my favorite classes I ever did.
Sweet.
And I didn't teach a thing.
No.
But I guess I did, right? But it was just be where you need to be.
I think that's why I love practicing in a group so much instead of online. The energy of everyone, right? Doesn't it just feel so much better after yoga class, or even during the yoga class when you're breathing with other people, and the final relaxations are deeper. When I'm at home doing things by myself and no one else is around, it's just like, wait, I have something to do upstairs. Let me quickly do this final relaxation or whatever. And when there's people around you, you go, no, this is our time. And you connect energetically. And when I teach outside of the yoga world and theater, it's all about connection with your audience. So when you're talking about, noticing the people in the class and doing what they need to do, it's such a beautiful energy, when you're really able to connect with other people and find that you're paying attention, they're paying attention, and it's that's what relationship and humanity, I feel like, is supposed to be about.
Yeah. My favorite way to practice is a small group of people, an intimate group, where it's not about making money. P.S. Yoga's never been about money. No yoga teacher ever went into it thinking that, well, maybe they went into it thinking they were doing You never go into teaching yoga for money. It's never been about that. It's always so much more, but we have, these small, impactful classes where we can connect with small groups of people and make a big difference.
Yeah, I always think of yoga as like literally home, but like it feels even more than like a childhood home, because sometimes that comes with its own like challenges and triggers. I know I'm in the right space when I can walk in and there's just this air of like acceptance, and everybody is welcome. And if I don't feel that, because I have been to centers where that is not initially, I can almost always, after the class, you go through the asanas and the practice, almost always at the end, the people that I thought were the toughest will be like, have a great week. And I'm like, oh, there it is. You will eventually get there at some point in yoga.
We do. We were, something you just said made me think about like the whole trauma stuff. And trigger, I think you said triggering, I was thinking trauma. I know you've done a lot of work with this too. It's yoga is one of the only things I know that lets us really kind of squeeze into the cellular memory and release it really release it, you know. And again, not to knock therapy, because that's a great modality for a lot of people, but I also know people that have been talking about the same thing for 30 years and they really haven't gotten over or through anything. But I've seen people literally release trauma in their body in the practice and not carry it with them anymore.
And like, just true transparency, right? Like, I was in a session. Yes, I 100% believe that there's not just trauma here and here, it's like here. It's stuck. We know this. I mean, we know this through the practice. So I was in a therapy session and my therapist and I are talking, and all of a sudden I just feel like, you know, the whole feeling like I can't breathe, I feel stuck, and I'm just like, you know what? And I just start doing asanas and we're talking and I'm moving, and it was the most beautiful practice. And she is like, oh my God, this is amazing, you know. And so it was, for me, that was like the moment where I was like, oh my God, this is what it should be. And that's why then I hear like, yeah, when people release their trauma on the mat, and if they had this in conjunction with, oh my God.
Yeah. Somewhere in one of my trainings, maybe you guys remember where, because I don't, but there's a question I think I asked you guys somewhere about what aha moments you've had on the mat. Do you remember any? Anybody have like a really big aha moment on the mat?
I think my one was in training, and I feel like everyone that knows me knows this story, where I was in downward dog, and you had like, you know, Joanne was like with the strap pulling my hips, Joe was like holding my heels, Raj was like at my, you know, so I have this entire group of people just surrounding me and like supporting the pose, and then you are rubbing my back and you're like, just melt your heart. And I don't know what happened that I just, and I was like, it's that simple? Like, I haven't been melting my heart. Like, oh my God. And I think, and sometimes I think it's in those simple moments of things you've said or other teachers have said, and it's such a simple thing, but it clearly is something that I've needed. And even when I've heard from students or, you know, clients in the past, like, it's always the simple things that I say that they're like, oh my God, that blew me away. I'm like, that blew me away? That's some really good stuff. That was the thing, you know. Yeah. That, I don't know, I'm still till this day, every time I'm in a downward, I imagine that moment, and I imagine you saying, like, whispering, melt your heart. And I'm like, oh. And it's just like, so I feel like that, and that was honestly teacher training, which was, I don't know, years and years ago, and I still, so
I knew.
Yeah.
That was a big aha moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see it in either energetically or physically, whatever, on some layer, you see it in your student, and you're trying to find the right way to convey that to them, you know, because you could say, press into this, engage that, squeeze this. That's not working. All right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is something just like,
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah. It was my first training with you, 2014, and I came in from a really conservative Christian home. So I was a little like, this is a little woo-woo. And the first thing that Tracey does is stands us in a circle around a candle with this stuff that she was spraying, not spraying, the sage. And I'm like, right, part of some seance. Honestly, that was going through my head.
yeah.
We held hands, and the first thing you said was, you have the right to be here. And we said it 3 times. And that's always stuck with me, that I have the right. And I use that with children as well. And that was definitely my aha, that, okay, put the conservative Christianity away. It's about me right now. So thanks, Trace.
Yeah. Some stuff there.
Yeah.
The right to be.
Yeah.
is a significant thing, and every pose, because the word asana is at the end of every pose, right? Balasana, Adipaka, Rasana. It's always there, and it means seat. It means just find your seat there, just be there in that pose, which is why, you know, I loved vinyasa. I loved power vinyasa for a while. You couldn't get, look, it needed to be 100 degrees, and I needed to be flowing and pushing my body, and I loved that for a period of time. But find your seat, and that's where you really learn something. That's where you really get somewhere. And if you don't, right, that was the other thing I made you guys do in teacher training, sit in every pose for 5 minutes and then write what you feel.
Yeah, that was powerful. I still have them. Should do that again.
Amazing.
Yeah, and sometimes I would get people, they go, well, I like this pose because it opens my hips. Or
Touches my quads.
yeah, this one's hard for me because it hurts my knees. And then I would go back and go, yeah, but dig deeper.
Yeah.
And tell me what you feel emotionally when your knees hurt. And people go, I don't know what you mean. And say, then you need to sit there longer in that pose. But it hurts, I know.
It's scary to go there sometimes. You know, we have these walls up, but once you experience the emotion for the first time, you do want more of it, I think.
Yeah, that's where you really realize the depth, right? The ability.
I was teaching a class the other day with my girlfriend that I grew up with, and she knows a lot about me, probably way too much about me. And so we know each other really well, and she's one of those with the mind, and she's really guy. I'm like, okay, she keeps moving. So a couple of practices we've been doing together, and the other day I noticed she was crying her eyeballs out, and I was like, oh no. And so I got really upset, like, okay, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to continue. And sometimes when you teaching a class, you don't really know what you said. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know sometimes what maybe kind of made that happen to them, because you don't even remember what you said or how, you know what I mean? Like, it was just a natural way of talking. After the practice, she said that she realized something during practice, and it got her very upset, and she was crying the whole time. But it was a breakthrough for her, and it was like serious. So when you see that happening, I mean, yeah, it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because it's like, ooh, but it's a good thing.
But I think you made space. You made a safe space for her to be able to go there. So then again, you just go back to holding that space for them, right?
And then all I could say was sometimes that's what a practice will do for you, or that.
Yeah.
Because you're with yourself, you're there, you know. And once you get them to go there, that's when you know that it worked.
Because it's so hard for us in our modern world to not busy ourselves so much that we can't find the time, the quiet to really connect to ourselves. I find, I put on music or Audible and listen to my stories or whatever, but when I turn it off, it's like I remember, oh, this is also part of the practice. Just be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Sharon Gannon of Jivamukti Yoga. She once said that yoga is both a natural and cultivated state. And I always remember that. Sometimes it's very natural, and then sometimes no. I have to cultivate. I have to work this. Yeah.
It reminds me of Shavasana and how I say, like, it's like right before you go to sleep, but don't go to sleep, because you know how to do that, right?
Yeah.
And you used to say, or maybe it was you would say marinate in the pose.
Oh, I love that term.
I do think of a steak, whatever.
Or tenderize.
I think that works. You know? I love that.
Yeah, I love that term, marinate. That goes back to that sitting in it. Being in it,
True.
And with all the juices and all of the searing, because sometimes you do feel seared.
Rawness.
Yeah.
And it's so easy, I think, to resist that because we've known, I think we were taught, at least the majority of, I've been taught the opposite of that, right? It's keep going, get over it, like brush it under the rug, and that's rather than sitting with it. It's such an, and so it's so easy. And I remember initially I feel like I would get agitated, and it's not yoga's fault. Obviously, I love this practice, but it was me in a yoga, like just this. Now it's almost like the glasses are coming off, kind of like the glasses, and so now I'm seeing things, and I'm trying to process that while still living in this life that teaches you the opposite, right? Which is keep doing, keep going, and I'm trying to be and go at the same time, and you're just agitated. And I remember, like, oh my God, yoga makes me angry.
I was gonna say, don't hold back, girl.
Yes, I was like, oh, I don't like this. And then my sister-in-law and her daughter were doing yoga because now, years later, obviously I found the balance and I figured it out, right? And she's like, how do you like yoga? It makes me angry, and it makes my daughter angry too. And I'm like, stay with it. All you can say is go back. And she's like, oh, I don't like it. And it was so funny. She called me just the other day and she said, oh my God, my yoga teacher said I was doing amazing. And she stuck with it. And I was like, yes, like that's it. But that initial, like, I don't like it. You get really angry at yoga. You're like, this sucks. How can so many people like this? Like, how has this practice been around for centuries?
I know. I remember the first time I did yoga, I went with a friend of mine because I had a bad back. I was always complaining. She probably was tired of hearing me complain. And she said, let's try yoga. And I was like, oh no. Because all I could hear was that song, was that Jimmy Buffett song where he says something negative about yoga. Whatever. So anyway, I go reluctantly because she said we'll go out to dinner, and all I was thinking was like food and drinks. So we go, and the whole time I'm in my head, and physically I can't do almost everything, so I'm modifying, and I'm feeling like a failure. My back's against the wall because I can't even sit up straight. I couldn't do half the stuff. And then Shavasana, she's like, quiet the mind, relax. I'm like, relax. All I could think of was all the stuff, the monkey mind. And we get up from Shavasana, and I just remember my girlfriend just kind of looking at me with this like blissful face. She's like, but wasn't that wonderful? And I was like, I hate yoga.
Interesting. Wow.
It's like, no, this was horrible. And the teacher said, just come back.
Well, you resist, persist, right?
Yeah. And she said, just come back. And I bought a pass because my girlfriend said, we'll go to dinner every night after yoga.
Amazing. We have to thank her.
Yeah,
For us.
She lured you in, tempted you.
She got me
It
there. But yeah, because it wasn't great. Sometimes it's not great at first.
Right.
Yeah. Or we perceive it's not great because it is showing us all the things we need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's a big mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're not ready to look in that mirror. Right? But then when we have the strength to do it, or the courage to do it, that's it.
Right.
Beautiful. Thank you guys for being part of this panel today.
Thank you.
It's always great to reconnect and talk all these beautiful things and see all of you. So thank you so much for being part of the panel. And maybe do you have any parting words for people about this practice? Anybody, you can go around and just say like one just do it, like Nike.
Right.
Or did we say it all? Did we say what we came to say? Maybe we did.
It's gonna save the world. We all just have to do it. Everybody do yoga.
Yeah, it should be a requirement. At first they might not like it, but eventually they'll get it.
But if we did teach it to every kid, if we did start when kids were little and open, and we got it into every child's regular daily practice, that walls wouldn't be up, the resistancy wouldn't be up.
Absolutely, I think kids want to be in their bodies.
Yeah.
And just teaching them, I always say you don't limit a 3-year-old's mind versus an 18-year-old's mind. Teach a 3-year-old some of these big thoughts, and you can be surprised at what they hold on to. Don't limit that. They're more powerful than you think.
Way more.
That's for parents.
Way more. Yeah. Get them started young.
Yeah.
Get them in there. Yeah. And you're never too old to start.
No.
Yes.
So sometimes you can teach an old dog.
My dad just did yoga for the first time.
Wow.
That's great.
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah. You're not too young, you're not too old, you're not too big, you're not too small. Like yoga is for everyone and everybody. And
Yeah. And I think if, they in yoga, this word surrender, right? And it took me a long time to really know what that meant. And now, even, all I can say is the surrender breath, right? Which is an inhale. And you open your mouth, that's surrender. So even when you hate it, even when you don't want to be there, even when you have to fight yourself in the car because you're going there even though you don't want to, just take that breath and surrender to that moment.
Yeah.
A lot like life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it parallels life for me at least, and I think a lot of people in a big way.
I love that you brought up the surrender breath.
Right?
It's one of my favorites.
Mine too.
It really is. I remember I used to have an Iyengar teacher teaching for me for a while, and she would go, I always know when it's one of your students because they do the surrender breath. In the middle of one of my, as she's instructing something, she would get annoyed that somebody would take a surrender breath.
I love that.
Yes.
It reminds me, and I go, yeah, let's all do it. Everybody,
And
right?
sometimes the surrender's like, like a roar.
But we still have that post-COVID trauma.
Yes.
A little bit, but it is great. Yeah.
And then you catch yourself doing it at home, and your husband's like, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong, actually, everything's great.
There you go.
Yeah, not about you.
Actually, this makes me like you so much. It's preventing me from spiraling.
Remind yourself to do it in the car, at the grocery store. The surrender breaths are some amazing things.
In our practice, in the training, a family got involved, right? So I had to teach my husband yoga. And, he still says, I said, what was that? He said,
A big surrender.
All day long. I love it. I love it. Well, let's end like we usually end our yoga classes, and we send this this message of the healing benefits of yoga to all the layers of the human person out there, to anybody that's listening. And if you know anyone in your life, you personally, or know anyone in your life that could benefit from yoga, you want to find a qualified yoga teacher in your area, start doing some research, start finding out where they got their training and certification and what styles of yoga they teach, and find somebody that's the right person for you or that person, and just do it. Just get on the mat, just get out there, because it is going to be a gift. It's really going to be a gift. So we thank you for listening, and we thank you for sharing, and Om Shanti. 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 Namaste.
Namaste.
Yay.
Thank